Hello again. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Writing Rants. For today's episode, I am here with writer Kelly Thomas, who was one of the winners for the Word Counts poetry contest that was held this July. Hi, Kelly. Glad that you were able to join us.
Well, hello, Miss Naomi. I'm so glad I could join with you all today, and I hope that we have fun. And writers out there, if you are new, hopefully my writing will give you some inspiration to start your writing yourself.
I couldn't have said it better myself. So, you won the opportunity to interview on Writing Rants from that contest. So, I'm curious what inspired you to submit to the contest in the first place. Because most people look for like a monetary prize, and that wasn't something that was offered.
No, I was just, as you said, when I first started this whole journey, you can write whatever you please, you can post whatever you please, and honestly, I just do it as a once-in-a-while thing, just to have fun, see if I get any feedback to make the writing better, anything like that. And so this particular poem, I actually started this years ago. This particular poem I started years ago, and I never finished it. And so I was looking through my history of, poetry history and past things, and I found this, and I said, I can add on to this and make it something worth reading.
Right.
So I figured this one, we'll see what happens with this one, and we'll go from there, and apparently it won, so.
I know, the story makes me want to go through some of my old notebooks and try to reinvigorate some of the forgotten projects. So I did want to mention to some of the viewers that may not have been in the Facebook group and may not have read your poem that it's actually untitled. So I was curious why you left it that way and if that's a general practice that you have with your poetry.
So for me, I feel like not every piece of, whether it's poetry or a piece of work, has to have a specific title or identity, if you will. I feel like you should just make it your own, and if you feel like it should have a title, or if you feel like this particular title or specific title makes sense, then you should go with it. But in my opinion, I feel that coming up with the title should be the last thing that you do, but also I feel like it's the most difficult thing to do, because I feel like your head is so wrapped around picking out the perfect title when you're only on the first or second line of the piece that you're writing about.
I fell into that trap when I was writing my first novel. I was so focused on the title that I didn't pay attention to the fact that the plot made no sense and the characters were changed. But it's ironic. My current work in progress, All the King's Men, I actually came up with the title first. And it was interesting how everything worked out, and it was weird for me. Has that ever happened to you?
Sometimes I'm able to come up with the title firsthand and then go and dive right into the story. So sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. It depends on the feelings that day and the feel and the plot around the story. And I figure it out. I figure it out along the way. I figure it out as I go, and hopefully things turn out, like rainbows in the sky, clear as day.
Well, I definitely had some feels when I was reading your poem, and I don't think that I could have come up with a title to do it justice. But would you mind reading your poem for our listeners in case they didn't have the opportunity to read it?
I would be glad to. So viewers out there, make sure to sit down and get comfortable, because it's a long one. Okay. I'm trying to walk closer to the light, towards the broken paths that carry all of my broken promises. I bite my tongue in anxiety to change what once was broken. Those paths are history, black and white. I burned the photographs, the hurt, the endless shame. I put on a smile to hide my tears. Stepping out into the light is a big step. Protection is perfection at its finest. Paint a smile. History is written in black and white. Photographs mean nothing after being hidden away. But history is everything. That same smile came back. Choking back those tears, I let the fire do the rest. Perfection written in black and white. Too bad those paths cannot be erased.
That's why I like writers to read their own work, because if I would have read that out loud, it wouldn't have had the same impact. So thank you for that. Now, why don't you tell me a little bit more about that poem? What inspired you to write it? What deliberate choices did you make, from line to line, word to word, that made it exceptional?
So at the time of writing this, like I literally only got in the first couple of sentences. At the time of writing this, I was just writing to get some emotion out at the time. I think I was just going through a rough patch with school at the time. So I just started writing it down, and I didn't really think much of anything. And then as the time for the poetry contest came around years later, let me remind you, I just figured, why not add on to this, since you have that type of vibe in the past sentences, so why not add on to it? And just from there on, it just came about.
So is this the first contest that you've ever submitted to? And if so, what made you interested in this particular contest versus some of the others that are out there?
So for me, I'm an open and honest person. I'm a very open, sociable, butterfly type of girl. But at times when it comes to my writing, I'm very personal, very private, very on edge, I guess you could put it, with a lot of my writing pieces, and I only put what's meant to be out there, but the rest is, stays with me, stays inside me. And I figured, just for fun, just for laughs, just for feedback, why not give this contest a shot and see what happens?
Well, I'm glad that you did. You mentioned that you started this poem a couple of years ago. So how long have you been writing? Why do you write? What inspires you?
So I started writing, I would say probably about maybe when I was 9 or 10 years old. I can't really remember that far back, but I would say pretty much around then. And then when school came around, I started getting more and more into it with Writer's Workshop at Albany School of Humanities, and then at Myers, same thing, did some writing here and there. But then in high school was then where it really kicked off, because I happened to show a teacher of mine a piece randomly, and he recommended showing it to another teacher of mine that happened to run the poetry club at Albany High School. So for the last 2 years, I joined the poetry club Inkblot, and as the year went on, as the 2 years went on, I knew that this was a good choice for me. It's a good fit, and it allows me to be myself in a more inspirational way, being around friends and showing a side of myself that a lot of people don't get to see.
Now, were there particular authors that have inspired you so far, or that influence your writing to this day?
Good question. That's a very good question. I do have to say I have 2 authors that I am very intrigued by with their style of writing, because it's very similar to mine to an extent. And those authors I would need to say are Jay Asher, author of 13 Reasons Why. Very suspenseful thriller. If nobody has read it, I highly recommend. And then another author would need to be Eric Devine, and I have read 2 of his books, I believe, and they, again, are really suspenseful, really have the suspicious side of things, and definitely meant for teenage, young adult thrillers.
Interesting. That gives a whole new light to the poem as well, just knowing the things that you're interested in and the things that, have an effect on you and your writing. This is why I love doing this. And I love analyzing work, because it's just the more that you find out, your opinion can completely change. It's just so fun. It's fun to me. Most people find it boring and troublesome, and who likes to write essays. But it kind of brings up my next question, almost in a way. I've been talking to a lot of the other poets that submitted the work to the contest, and a lot of them don't actually consider themselves poets. I saw a lot of, hey, I'm not really a poet, but I thought I'd share this, or hey, I don't really write poetry, but I thought I'd try. So I'm curious if you consider yourself a poet, and if you do or if you do not, I'm curious why. What's the reason?
Let's see. That's definitely a thinker one to ponder over. So I've been thinking about this one a lot, and I even asked a few people if they consider myself a poet, and a lot of them said yes, just because they know me on a more personal level than others, and they know my style of writing and the way that I do it. But personally, I would have to say yes, because I've done it for so many years and my writing has gotten better over the years, and more knowledge of it has gotten known over the past time, because I don't think I would be where I am, honestly, without Inkblot, because it definitely brought out a new leaf throughout my last years in high school. It definitely brought out a new leaf and opened up a lot more of a doorway for me, of a new pathway, and I definitely feel that that was the right decision and the right choice for me at the time.
Interesting. So where would you say that you are on your writing path right now? Have you published anything before? Are you thinking about publishing? Do you also write prose as opposed to poetry? Tell us a little bit more about that.
So I used to be an all over the place type of writer. I used to write books and stories and just be creative with my writing all the time. But as the years went on, throughout middle school and high school, I realized that poetry was the more of the right space for me and the right headspace for me, because I feel with poetry, with any type of writing, you can express yourself however you please. It's your own style, it's your own way of doing things. But I feel personally, when it comes to me and myself and the way that I do things, I feel that poetry is definitely a way to express myself, as I said before, express myself in a way that not a lot of people get to see.
So since your poetry or your writing, I should say, is predominantly like a form of an emotional release for you, is publication on your radar at all? Is that something that you're interested in or that you've been working toward? There's no right or wrong answer. I'm just curious.
That's another good question. As of right now, not at this time. As of right now, not at this time for publication. As the years go on, maybe I'll extend or expand into something that could be worth publishing. But as of right now, my poetry that I published for this particular platform is just for fun, just to, let out all the emotion that I need to, and just let it out in a more poetic way that people can understand and people would want to read.
Absolutely. Publication is by no means the end goal for all writers, nor does it make a writer. The way I see it, if you have that passion, if you wake up some days and you can't function because you're so focused on what you're going to write next, then you're a writer. You don't necessarily have to be a published author. So your time will come and you'll find which path you want to go down, and you'll make yourself successful on it, regardless if you decide to go the publishing route or not. So do you work on any larger projects at all? I know you said you focus predominantly on poetry. Do you try to string your poetry along with, similar thematic threads or anything like that? Or do you just write what comes to mind at the moment?
I would have to say that I just write what comes to mind, whether it's for an emotional outlet, whether it's just to get it out of the brain before it goes away, whether it's to share with somebody or just to keep to yourself, or anything within that line. I would have to say that I just do it as it comes. I mean, I don't try to force it. I don't try to take it gently, take it lightly, take it heavily, whatever you want to call it. I take it as it goes. I take it day by day, and then I see where the pen takes me, if you will.
I like that. I think I'm going to steal that.
Feel free.
I'll credit you, of course. So the contest was held predominantly on Facebook, so clearly you're on there. But where else can our readers find you and or your work?
So fortunately, just for me personally, I should say, fortunately, where's that word coming from? Personally, for me, I do tend to keep my social media private. It's just my way of doing things with social media. However, I do have a YouTube platform if anybody is interested. It is called Live to Vlog, but I also have a personal channel that I do a series called Silence Read the Poetry, and I will post black and white videos, completely silent, with the poem in the description down below. So if any of you guys are interested, consider heading over to those links. I'm pretty sure Miss Naomi over there will leave the links for you. Absolutely. Be sure to click any of the links and see if you're interested and consider subscribing.
Okay, well, I'm definitely going to check out those channels because it sounds interesting to me, and I like your poetry from what I've seen so far, so it seems like a win-win. And I know that you're very busy, so I don't want to hold you up any longer than necessary. Is there anything that you would like to leave our viewers with? Any last words before we split our ways today?
Honestly, I mean, just do what you think is right for you when it comes to writing. Don't force it, as I said. Don't force it. Don't take it personal. Do it for you. Don't do it just because you think you're going to win this major, huge contest and there's going to be a major, $1 million prize. Do it because it's good for you. Do it because you feel you want to. Do it because what I can say is you want to. Don't do it because somebody around says you have to do it for this, $1 million prize, like I said. Do it because it's meant for you. Do it because it's meant for your mindset. Do it because you enjoy it. And do it for yourself and for those around you. And overall, do it for the inner poet inside you.
Absolutely. That's a wonderful tidbit to end on, because as we all know, if something's a labor to write, it's going to be a labor to read. And who wants to read something like that? Who wants to read something that's a struggle? So please take Kelly's advice. Enjoy what you do. If you don't enjoy it, stop, change, try something new until you find what it is that you like.
Hi, Naomi from The Word Count here. If you enjoyed today's rant, be sure to smash that like or subscribe button. We do book reviews, book to film comparisons, author interviews, and more, so be sure to check out some of the other videos on our channel. If you are interested in being featured on the Writing Rants podcast, you can contact us through the link in the description, or you can visit our website, thewordcount.com. As always, check back in next week for another rant and some more creative writing gems, because every word counts. Ciao.